Israel launched its first strikes against Syrian tanks heading towards the southern city of Suwayda yesterday, in what appears to have been a prelude to a broader campaign in the area. The new Syrian government, led by former militant leader Ahmed al-Sharaa, has deployed forces to the south of the country as sectarian violence broke out between the local clans there and militia from the Druze community. Dozens have been killed during that fighting since the weekend, and the Syrian Defence Minister has since announced a ceasefire, something the Druze militia said was imposed on them.
The Israeli strikes targeted internal security posts, patrols and Syrian military police checkpoints in an attempt to reinforce a state of chaos. Syrian army convoys were also targeted.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defence Minister Israel Katz said Israeli forces would attack Syrian government troops, tanks and vehicles as Israel sought to protect the Druze population. The Netanyahu government has been promising to do this ever since the Syrian regime of former dictator Bashar al-Assad was toppled last year by those rebel forces. In part, it's because there is a Druze community in Israel as well, and that community is broadly supportive of Israel. But the country's operations, military operations inside Syria, both from the air and from the ground, have repeatedly been described as overreach by the international community. Regardless of that, the Netanyahu government says it is protecting the state of Israel. And late today, we have heard from the north of Israel that a number of members of that Druze community had crossed the border into Syria, and Israeli forces were working to try to bring them back into Israel. The IDF has also launched heavy airstrikes in Lebanon's Beqaa Valley, killing 12 people, including 5 fighters from the militant group Hezbollah. That's despite a ceasefire being in place since last November. All of this comes as Israel's bombardment of Gaza continues, along with those negotiations between Israel and Hamas on a ceasefire and hostage deal. Last week, the Israeli Defence Minister Israel Katz presented a proposal to build what he described as a humanitarian camp on the ruins of the southern Gazan city of Rafah, but which many observers have described as more of a concentration camp proposal. Aside from those humanitarian concerns, the debate continues to rage in Israel as to the viability of such a project, whether or not it could actually be built in the time frame that Israeli authorities require or desire, and whether or not it would be too expensive. Some of the suggestions are that this has been floated and will never actually get off the ground, but the far-right members of the Netanyahu coalition, people like the Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, are saying it is a viable proposal and should go ahead, even in the face of growing international condemnation.